That was weird.
Hello, hello.
I'm trying to take it off. Hi,
That's all
there
right,
it
no
is.
worries.
Hey,
Yay, thank you.
Hey,
What is
how
up,
you guys
everybody?
doing today?
Woo.
What,
I,
what?
I feel like it's been forever since we've all been together.
I
yeah,
know,
it does feel
right?
like that. I mean, it's only what 1 week we skipped there.
Hey,
For me,
Cam.
for me, last week we didn't have Kyber Cave After Dark either. So I was just feeling like, oh my god, dude, what do I do with myself? I don't even like. Usually, I'm doing shows at these times.
Damn.
Cam, what is up, brother?
Yeah, I was super excited for this one, but yeah, 4th of July kind of disrupted things because I ended up being in a parade last minute,
Woohoo!
and then I was like, oh no,
You
I need
ended
to
up in a brace.
go.
What
I
are you,
did.
Ferris
It was my
Bueller?
sister. It was
She
my
was Ferris
sister.
Bueller. Yeah,
Yeah, I Ferris Bueller the parade.
the pretty version.
You just jumped on top of a float and started dancing and
Started
singing.
Yeah,
dancing.
pretty
It's
much
yeah.
dancing and singing. That was me. I'm
Yeah.
playing the ukulele.
Well, if anybody was going to do
Always
it,
playing
I would
ukulele.
think it would be you.
Over Dad's classic car there.
Yeah. No, my sister had painted her car, and she's part of a nonprofit. So
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
ended up getting whole family involved in there. So my mom was driving her car, her and I were
Oh,
walking, and there was a bunch of other people playing music and handing out candy. Bunch
hey,
of
you
kids.
got
Yeah,
Mezzo
and it's her.
coming in.
Yeah, and it. Hey,
Mezzo.
no.
Wow, that was
Wow,
cool.
that was cool.
What's
So
up,
yeah,
Mets?
so that was fun. So totally disrupted. And I got to pet a Frisian. That was amazing.
You got a what?
A Frisian horse.
Oh, those are
Oh,
beautiful horses. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, I got the guy's number so I could go and ride. But yeah, I I love riding horses and
I
training, and
miss
I've
my
trained them
horse.
too. I miss mine too. I had a horse named Mabel when I was
Oh,
a teenager, and I spent hours with her. She was barn sour, and unfortunately, the barn that she was barn sour for was right next door.
of
So
course.
unfortunately, she would
She's always
try to
over
keep
there.
going back to that barn. And so I would have to turn her. I mean, I got like I was the only one she basically let ride at that point.
That's cute.
So unfortunately, my mom had to give her away because she thought she was a danger.
Oh.
oh
Because other
wow.
people tried to ride her, and I wasn't there.
Oh, and she would kind of
And
not act right, buck them off and
yeah,
run.
she bucked my brother off. She reared up and threw my younger
Oh,
sister off.
oh yeah,
So
that's how I
she's
met
like,
my horse.
"Yeah, we can't have you do that. We can't have that happen with the horse." I'm like, "Mom, I mean, first off, this wasn't the horse I actually wanted, but that's fine." No, she was great. I loved her. She was an awesome horse. Anyway, we are sidestepping. Anyway, so it was really, really awesome to talk to this guy that had this amazing, beautiful Frisian horse. And
They
I was like,
are
"Yeah, I used to train. I trained as a hobby as a kid, and I trained my one horse that I had, and he's like, "Oh, if you want to ride and anytime, like here's my number. You could do that." So it was pretty
nice,
cool.
nice.
Anyways,
Wow.
that was
Nice.
that was my fun thing. I need to call him, but because I told him I was pretty busy, but I told him I'd give him a call. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So what's been going on otherwise with you guys? I heard you had quite the adventure there, Van.
Yeah, we had, well, last 4th of July. I wasn't, the reason we didn't have a show was I wasn't able to be here. We were doing tables out in Sassoon.
He was
Literally
slacking.
did not sell a
He was not
single thing.
slacking.
It's kind of, it's kind of funny when you go out and do these things. It's kind of like fishing. Some days you pull in a
Yes.
whopper, and some days you pull in nothing at all.
Them's the break.
But
Yep.
we did catch that whopper when we went up to Reno. I wanted to thank Dave Hawthorne and everybody at Silver Age Comics for
Aw,
for
that's
accommodating
awesome.
us and taking care of us. We had a great day there until we came home, and I had some kind of weird car accident thing. I don't even want to say it wasn't an accident because I don't even really know.
There's a malfunction.
Is it a car malfunction? Yeah, your car just apparently it just blew out. Did they find out what it was? Was it a head gasket? What was radiator? What was it?
Well, okay, so I haven't gotten into the shop yet. It's in front of my driveway because it cost to get it towed from where I was at. We were just north of Auburn, like 20 minutes north of Auburn. It cost $1,200 to get the car back to Sassoon. We parked it, basically got everything out of it, but I haven't had a chance to take it to the shop. What was weird was when we looked in the engine offhand, nothing looked out of place, or even when I restarted it to align the car, it seemed to be okay. What was odd was that when we pulled over, when we got the tow, the tire was blown out and all 5 of my lug nuts were gone from that side, and the tire was barely hanging on to the bolt. So for some reason, oddly,
That's
4
crazy.
or 5 lug nuts just magically came off. And, we had
I
already
don't
been
know if the
driving
magic had something to
hours.
do with it.
It could have had to do with the altitude that you came down, and maybe an altitude, a valve or something like that basically meters your fuel or something may have snapped shut. And as you got down to lower altitudes, it may have just eventually reset itself.
What would that have to do with the lug nuts coming off?
Oh, with the lug nuts. Sorry, that I don't know.
Nuts, I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm like, I don't think the car had anything to do with that. I mean, I've experienced because of heat. Last year when I was going through Texas with my friend, 2 tires popped, but that's kind of normal for that. Yeah, it was 106-degree weather. We were driving, and we were 45 minutes away from Armadillo. And
yeah. If it was just like one lug nut that had rattled off or something, that I can understand. But all 5 of them coming off just seemed. We were started thinking. I was like, dude, were we sabotaged somehow for like?
That's what I'm wondering.
Who would do that, and for why? And then why? Like, the only thing we could think of was that maybe somebody was trying to steal the tire, but got caught in the process and ran. I don't know. But we were at the convention the whole time. Then we stopped to get some Chinese food, and we hit the road, and it was an hour through the mountains before this was an issue.
Wow.
So it was just really bizarre circumstances.
Yeah, that sounds like super weird. Next time you go, if I'm free, I'd love to go with you and help.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, we are going to. We're definitely going to be partnering up. Distance Nerding is partnered with Powerhouse Comics, right? So they do conventions in 3 different states, 5 conventions a year, and Distance Nerding does all of the interviews for them. So
that's cool.
Yeah, we just interviewed Dave Hawthorne on our show like 2 weeks ago, and I had told him, hey, I want to get on their circuit, like I want a table at each of their shows. Because we did well in Alameda, we did well in Reno. So he just puts on very solid shows that people want to go to. And, it's just high quality, and the different types of, they had a couple of actresses from the Scream movies were there.
That's really cool.
They had a Power Ranger.
Was it Austin?
The original Captain America. Like, I don't even remember from the 70s where he had like the motorcycle helmet. That Red Brown is his name. He was there at the convention.
That's really cool.
That's very cool. Yeah.
So anyways, I know we're having so much fun talking. Anyway, just let me know when the next one is, like what the dates are and what time, so I can check my schedule and see if I can go. Yeah, because I like working with Steven too, because Steven's fun.
Oh yeah.
And,
Well, if you ever want to come, I pay pretty well. I
awesome.
pay well for cons.
Awesome. That'd be great. All right.
um,
Anyways, we should get started with this. I know that we're like having fun just
yes.
chatting, but
Let's get
so
to as
let's
many
get
people
to
may
the
know, we are in our sleep series
site.
right now.
Yes, sleep series, which is a lot of fun, right?
It is fun.
I've been having a blast learning about all of these sleep disorders. It's
Definitely.
really interesting. And
Yes.
this one is actually an offshoot of. Can you take away that title
Yeah,
card?
I'm trying. I'm like
I
thinking.
don't know. That's just put in the background, not the foreground. So we could just have that in the background because that's a really cool, like little black background. Anyway, the yeah, so this is actually an offshoot. We're talking about homicidal sleepwalking or homicidal somnambulism. And
Right.
this is something that I found out, funny enough, I got interested with because
We did
it
sleepwalking
was
last
mentioned,
week.
not last week, the week before we did
Or,
sleepwalking. And
right.
during that, uh, I saw this thing for,
We had the story about the guy that the
yes,
sleepwalking. He was a
yes.
cop, and then he ended up he was the guy that killed. The cop was the guy that killed the guy.
Yes, and then I got curious, and so I started Googling it. I started looking up facts and such, and turned out there was a lot, and I mean a lot on this.
There has been 68 reported cases of
68.
sleep homicide. Oh, by the way, that is our topic for tonight: sleep homicide. Should we get
Sleep
the
homicide,
definition up?
sleepwalking. Yeah, do you want
Homicidal
to?
sleepwalking or
There we go.
somnambulism.
Yep.
All right.
Homicidal somnambulism, literally homicidal sleepwalking, and colloquially known as sleepwalking murder. It's the act of killing someone during an episode of sleepwalking. Occasionally, sleepwalkers kill people, usually a family member, during their sleepwalking act. So, this is super fascinating. Like, and it's actually really rare. It is a rarer form of somnambulism, and but it does happen. And there have been people who've used this as a
Excuse.
defense. Actually, it's
Yeah.
huge. It's actually really interesting, and people have no memory of it. There was a guy in one of the cases I saw, like he went to his parents' house and found them just brutally murdered, and he called the police, and then they found out that they had cameras or something. I don't remember exactly how it came out. This is 2 weeks ago when I was looking at it, and he's just so distraught. He's like, I don't even know what happened, and it turned out that he was a sleepwalker. And he got into the car, drove to his parents' house, sleepwalking, and murdered them horrifically.
Yes.
So this is why this is so interesting.
And as a past active sleepwalker, this freaks the hell out of me.
And when I was looking up, the fast facts for sleepwalk or for homicidal sleepwalking, one of the other things they were talking about sleepwalking in general, you can do. People have been known to make gourmet meals
Yep.
while they were asleep.
Yes.
They've been known to bathe. They've been known to have intercourse with their partner while they were sleeping.
I had my friend's mom, as I was telling you, tried dyeing her hair in sleep, and it was because of her medication. She had medication for pain.
Oh yes.
And so unfortunately that caused sleepwalking, caused somnamblism. So there was one time where she tried to bake a cake. Her biggest thing was she would turn on the television to shopping network, and she would buy things in her sleep.
While she was sleeping?
While she was sleeping, she would buy things, and then they would come, and she had no memory. She was like, what happened?
Where's all this stuff coming from?
She was the absolute sweetest person. So
now that was interestingly because one of the other facts that I saw was saying that it was sleepwalking is most prevalent in children between the age of 10 and 13. However, 4% of 4% of adults sleepwalk, and it's typically triggered by something else. So
yes, I actually have
medication or
yes. I do have now this is from Psych Neuron. So the behavior can turn homicidal or violent and traumatic, and it is, I had it, where was it? The the fact of why some of it's violent. Usually, it has to do with either if you have violent dreams or you. Nocturnal urinosis. That's something that we should also take a look at, which is really interesting. But it usually has to do with an irregularity from the NREM to REM sleep, and that's usually what happens. Of the my brain is like not working right now.
I had read that it typically occurs in the first third of the sleeping hours. So
it's usually during it's right before you go into REM. It's when you are going from non-REM to REM.
And interestingly, I saw it said that 40 to 90% of sleepwalking cases can be violent, meaning that they might for example, one of the things that I was reading was that you shouldn't wake up a sleepwalker, right? Because
that's actually a myth. You should.
Okay. So let me tell you what I read. That you shouldn't wake up a sleepwalker because a lot of times they can be disoriented, and because of that, they may swing at you, or if they have a pot in their hand, they may try to attack you with what's around. Now, I did read, however, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. You can guide a sleepwalker without waking them, so you should guide them back to bed so that they don't, hurt themselves in the kitchen or whatever else. But at least in what I read, it said you shouldn't wake them up because they may be disoriented and then attack you out of, not knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So we may have, differing things there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was looking at that's a myth. That was one of the myths that I actually looked up from 2 weeks ago. It said it was like a myth. You should not wake the sleepwalker. And actually it says that's actually just a myth.
Yes. I was woken up many times from my sleepwalking episodes in the Coast Guard. I didn't have the slightest clue on how the heck I got to where I was, but I would be woken up and then go back to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea that I was doing all of this stuff in my sleep. I mean, I didn't do anything to harm anyone, but I was dismantling my firearms, cleaning them, putting them back together. I was studying for tests. I was practicing different exercise movements and stuff like that we might be doing, going on patrol to watch and things like that. Doing the things, sewing, ironing, undoing a combination lock.
But that's kind of, wait a minute, you're undoing a combination lock?
Oh yeah,
you could do really complex things.
I could do everything I could do while awake in my sleep.
No, okay, so here's
my active sleepwalker.
Here's what catches me off guard about that. I understand you can do I guess driving would be the same thing, huh?
Oh yes,
driving
I drove. I found myself waking up from sleep driving.
So
I know you can do very complex things, but I had thought because of the, that they said that the person is unaware, and usually when you look at them, they look like they have a very blank look on their face. They're not cognitive of what's going on.
Oh no, you're not cognitive of this. No.
So
these are complex
hold on, let me finish.
Function skills. All right.
I had assumed that a lot of these things, like for instance, if you were a chef, you would know how to cut things and possibly, it's kind of like what do you call it, muscle memory, right?
Yes.
So I'd assume that a lot of these things they could do on muscle memory. But if you're actually doing a combination, that means you have to visually look at the number that's on there.
Muscle memory, I know what it is.
Oh,
I open it. I open it every day.
Well, yeah, these are things that become so prevalent.
It's just like knowing your phone number. It's like knowing your address. It's like knowing where you live and knowing where your store is. I mean, you don't have to use Google Map to go there anymore, do you? Right. You just know where it is. I mean, in one of these cases, a person actually goes to their in-laws' house quite a distance away and then commits horrible things and then goes into the police station. So they actually are able to do very complex things without actually being aware they're doing it.
Yes.
Right.
And that's
why I say this freaks me out, because I used to be an active sleepwalker.
Right.
Like, whoa.
And again, we do want to point out this is very, very rare.
It's very rare that people harm other people in their sleep.
Right. Even amongst the sleepwalking. And even the sleepwalking is only 4%. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. No, it's okay. So we do have a few videos for you. I think the first one we have is a factual one. I don't remember off the top of my head, but let's just go through the first two.
I don't think we have anything relating to popular media on this because it's not a Yeah, I
No,
don't
but
like.
we have true crime. That's true crime media.
Yes,
So it
that's
is
better.
media. It's just true crime. Okay, here's the first one.
Tyrrell was charged with murder, and his defense lawyers provided 3 possible alternatives to today's episode. Grief and anxiety and stress can lead to a multitude of problems, from illness to exhaustion to insomnia. So I got to thinking on the nights when I couldn't sleep if insomnia or other sleep disorders had ever caused a crime to be committed or had ever resulted in a crime. I got to thinking about sleep disorders and whether there were any crimes committed that were caused by or a result of them. Homicidal sleepwalking or homicidal somnambulism is just as it sounds. It is the act of killing someone during an episode of sleepwalking. There have been cases reported over the years as far back as 1846, though, as you can imagine, a lot of these cases are contested. Without witnessing the act, how can it really be determined that a person was sleepwalking at the time of the murder or the killing? It is important to remember in these cases that to achieve a guilty verdict for murder, the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the murderer had intent to kill the victim, cause bodily harm, or showed reckless indifference to human life. A person can't show premeditation or intent if they're not conscious at the time of the act. In October 1845, the body of Maria Bickford was found in a boarding house. She had been murdered and her room and corpse burned. Her killer was quickly identified as Albert Tyrrell. Tyrrell had apparently visited Maria Bickford frequently before her murder. The pair had been heard arguing, and Tyrrell was seen in the area shortly after the murder and arson occurred. Some of his belongings were also found at the scene. Tyrrell was difficult to track down initially as he had left the area. In fact, he had fled as far as Canada before being arrested when he turned up again in New Orleans. The case was sensationalized in the media, with endless coverage of both the victim and suspected murder. There were pamphlets released with updates and biographies about the two. There were updates that, for their time, would rival our current 24-hour news cycle. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone was intrigued. And in this case, it likely helped Tyrrell's defense. Tyrrell was charged with murder.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to go right into the next one. Sorry about that.
All right.
No problem.
Tyrrell was charged with murder, and his defense lawyers provided 3 possible alternatives to the murderous theory. First, that Maria had slit her throat in an act of suicide. Second, that Tyrrell was simply not the murderer, and the person they were after was still out there. And third, that Tyrrell had absolutely been sleepwalking at the time and therefore could not be held responsible. The first 2 theories fall a little short on first hearing them. Tyrrell's lawyers had to take their chance on a sleepwalking defense. Tyrrell apparently was known for sleepwalking, experiencing nightmares and trances. In the 1800s, little was known about the causes of sleepwalking and what people were capable of while in this state. Tyrrell's lawyer painted a vivid picture of Tyrrell being trapped in a nightmare or a trance, finding Bickford, and acting out his violent dreams against his unsuspecting victim. The defense reminded the jury that if Tyrrell were found guilty of murder, he would surely be put to death. And he argued that if there was even a chance that Tyrrell was innocent, that he committed this crime while sleepwalking, they would be responsible for his death. It was likely due to the sensationalism of the case, as well as its unusual defense, that it took the jury only 2 hours to return a not guilty verdict. This was the first recorded case in which a sleepwalking defense was successful. Upon being found innocent, Tyrrell faded into obscurity, and he lived the rest of his life in a way that was entirely uneventful in comparison to this particular chapter. There have been various other cases over the centuries of homicidal sleepwalking, with one of the most recent occurring in 2008, where a man tragically killed his wife after mistaking her for an intruder while in a sleepwalking state. He was found not guilty of murder.
Wow.
Yeah. When I got to listening to her, I'm like, oh my God, she's very captivating.
Yeah.
And
I found it
topic,
interesting.
super interesting.
I found it interesting that they were saying that case, the one that she was reading, was the first time it was successful. Yeah.
Yes.
So that wasn't the first time somebody tried to use that defense.
No,
It was the
no,
first
I'm
time.
sure it's been used as an excuse many times, but
How many times? Probably, but it's probably said, "Oh, I was possessed," or "Oh, I was,
yeah,
bad spirits," or zombification. That's a lot of what, like zombification, and not to be like I'm Walking Dead eating your brains, but there's a trance-like state. It's an altered state of a consciousness that people go into. That's much like sleepwalking. It's called
yes.
zombieism, and people use it in like voodoo practices and such.
Yeah,
But
there's a
it's basically
great
the
old
same
movie
thing.
called The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Mm,
Lisa Bonet is in that movie. That's how old this movie is.
wow.
But they talk about that specifically, and it's a drug that they mix together that
Hmm.
puts, I mean, it puts your heartbeat and everything so low that it's undetectable, and then you revive like 12 to 24 hours later. You come back
Yes.
out.
Well,
Of
there
this
there have
state.
been longer term cases of it too. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a even older movie. It's black and white, old movie. I think it's from like 30s or 40s, and it's called So I Walked with a Zombie. And it is
Yes.
a beautiful movie. The movie is just heartbreakingly beautiful. I want to go see it again. It's just such a beautiful movie.
I checked that one
And
out from the library. It's a really good movie.
did you?
Yes,
I just
really
happened
good
to
movie.
catch it, and I was just
Uh,
like, this movie is incredible. Like the writing is so good, and the way it's shot is just beautiful. I wish it had gotten more. And it starred a black actor and a white female actor, right, as the
yes.
leads. And that was one of the first movies that actually came out with a black lead and a white lead. And the man who plays the zombie is so lovely. It's so lovely. It's just such a
Yeah.
isn't it beautiful? It's a beautiful film.
Really is. I'm telling you, if you don't like cutting onions because it brings
Don't
tears
watch
to your
that movie.
eyes,
It'll make you cry.
this movie will. You've got to bring your tissues with you.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful. Anyways, but yeah, it also talks about that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
Yeah,
about
sorry.
murderer.
The one other thing she mentions too
Mhm.
is trance, and
Yes.
that you mentioned about using different types of medicines or drugs
Yes, it's like a
or
trance-like state.
various, and they bring you into a trance-like state to where you can then basically replicate what sleepwalking is somewhat like, but you're in a trance, which is a little different than sleepwalking. But
Yes, and going into an altered state of consciousness is really fascinating, and it's its own whole research thing, its own whole case study, it's its own whole thing.
that's
There
what
have been
happens to me in
people that will,
bipolar. I go into an
huh?
altered state of, in bipolar. I go into an altered state, and let me tell you, it is creepy.
It,
Wow.
some people do it and work on people. It's really interesting. The cases I've taken a look at about altered state of consciousness. Anyways, so that's kind of what sleepwalking is. This type of homicidal sleepwalking is like you go into an altered state of consciousness and you can do really complex
Oh
things,
yeah, you can.
and
You know,
it can turn violent.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say this has gotten me to think like how many people probably in different time periods. You think of different regions of the world are strictly, very strictly dominated by
Yep,
religion. I wonder how many times that this has been written off as like a demon possessed him in the middle of the
that's
night.
what I was
Oh,
saying. Yeah, like a
yes,
demon
you
possession.
that could be
Yeah,
where a lot of
or vampirism.
our yes, a lot of our various different things we fear and various myths and legends have come from is because of these altered states and not
Yes.
understanding what they are. I mean,
Yeah.
what was it at one point? If you were an intelligent woman, you were considered a witch just
Oh
because you
yeah.
could
I
read a
mean,
book.
that was yeah.
I
It's
mean,
also because
talk
the
about
church wanted your
stupid and
property.
ignorant,
But
you know. But it's just amazing on how simple, everyday human experiences can be just exaggerated way out of control to where it
yes,
becomes, a monster.
yeah.
Right, or
So we're
maybe
gonna.
something that's
Uh,
not the norm can be seen as maybe it's a mental condition that we in 2020 would understand to be, say, autism or something like that, but back in that time period maybe they, because it was so rare, they would have thought it was a demon possession or witch possession or something like that.
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly.
All right.
All right. So let's go to the next two sets because they're part 1 and part 2 as well. A lot of these are just cases that they went through just because, well, it's hard to find anything that's like usually goes about this in the media. I'm sure there are videos out there. We just couldn't find any. But yeah, we're gonna go into this video here.
After he entered their home, the Woods tried to restrain Parks. He then strangled, but not to death, Donald and bludgeoned and stabbed Barbara. In the video today, we're answering a viewer question because Carl W. asks us, what happens if you...
Sorry, hold on, real quick,
No
pause.
problem.
I apologize. I accidentally clicked the wrong one. We're gonna start on part 1, then we'll go into
No worries.
In the video today, we're answering a viewer question because Carl W. asks us, what happens if you're sleepwalking and you kill someone? Anyone who has ever tried to reason with a sleepwalker knows they can seem to be awake, yet have bizarre and irrational behaviors. Stubborn during the best episodes and inconsolable, unreasonable, and intense in the worst, it is not hard to imagine these walking dreamers acting out nightmares and unintentionally turning violent. In fact, the sleepwalker's lack of intent has been used successfully as a defense in several murder trials over the years. One of the earliest known sleepwalking murders was committed by Albert Tyrrell in October of 1845 in Boston, Massachusetts. His mistress, Mary Ann Bickford, was found dead in her seedy boarding house. Her throat had been slashed, 6 inches across and 3 deep, one ear was cut and an earring was missing. Her skin was also charred and her hair was singed. Her killer had set her bed on fire. Tyrrell was a wealthy and married man who had taken to carousing with Mary years earlier, although both were, at the time of her death, only in their early 20s, and their relationship was also known to be tempestuous. On the night she was killed, Mary had been seen with Tyrrell, although he had left by the time she was discovered. Witnesses testified that he obtained a ride hurriedly that evening and had sought out relatives for assistance with leaving Boston. His brother-in-law testified that Tyrrell had said he was fleeing from an earlier charge of adultery and seemed surprised to hear of Mary's murder. At his trial, his capable attorney used several examples from history to explain how capable yet unaware sleepwalkers could be. He also presented testimony from Tyrrell's family about the extent of Tyrrell's sleepwalking since a young age. After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty. Next up, we have the case of Kenneth Parks. On May the 24th, 1987, late in the evening, Parks, who had fallen asleep in his living room, abruptly rose, put on his coat, grabbed his car keys, and left his house in Toronto, Canada. On his way out, he left both the front door and the garage door open. He drove about 14 miles to the home of his in-laws, Barbara and Donald Woods. He was planning on attending a fun family event there the next day, and all agreed that before the evening of the killings, he had a good relationship with his in-laws and had no motive for hurting them. After he entered their home, the Woods tried to restrain Parks. He then strangled, but not to death, Donald and bludgeoned and stabbed Barbara many times, causing her death. While committing the crime, he severed every flexor tendon on each of his 10 fingers. After he left their home, he was observed by the Woods' teenage daughters, who heard him grunting like an animal. Later that night, or early in the morning, he went to the police station and told them, "I think I killed somebody." At his trial for murder, the defense presented his well-established history of sleepwalking, which ran strongly in his family, as well as the other facts of the case. The idea here was to establish automatism, sleepwalking, as a defense. He was acquitted of murder, and that judgment it was sustained on appeal. Moving swiftly on to October 30th, 2003 in Manchester, England, Jules Lowe, 32, beat his 83-year-old father, Edward Lowe, to death. The two men resided together and were known to have a close relationship. The evening of the beating, the two had gotten seriously drunk after they attended Lowe's stepmother's funeral. Lowe reported that he had fallen asleep that night and had no memory of anything until he discovered his father dead on their driveway the next morning. The investigation revealed that the assault spanned 3 floors of the home and that Edward had 90 distinct injuries. The jury found Lowe not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was detained under a hospital order. All of this said, the 3 aforementioned people are among the exceptions, as most people who try to use the automatism defense are unsuccessful. One notable murder, where the facts are as compelling as some of those where the killer was acquitted, happened in California in 2001. After a night of drinking cocaine and fun in a hotel room on Catalina Island, Stephen Otto Rates, aged 25, woke up and found his girlfriend, Eva Maria Weinfurter, dead from several stab wounds to the back of her neck. When reporting the death to the police, he noted that he had no memory of attacking her. He did have a dream of struggling with an attacker, though. The knife wounds to Eva, they were similar to those he used in his work. He was a shark fisherman. At his trial, it was revealed that Reeds, who was bipolar, had forgotten his medication, but had taken some anti-anxiety medicine that Eva had given him. In addition, he had a history of sleepwalking, and a later investigation at a sleep clinic showed that not only did he suffer from sleepwalking, but he also had night terrors. Regardless, he was convicted, and he was sentenced to at least 26 years in prison.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
It was gruesome.
Yeah, the one that talked about.
It's really interesting because I was like, oh, interesting, because these ones are the ones I thought we had way more media on this, and I'm like, oh, these are basically the same cases. A lot of them, they're piling up on each other, but we went through that.
Yeah,
so I'm
it's
glad
hard
we went
not
through
to talk about the ones that really made headlines. That would be very difficult when you talk about this topic to leave those out and talk about all the extra ones that didn't make quite as big headlines. The one thing that I noted in that one was where the person was in their 20s, the two of them in their 20s, where he was married and he had a mistress. It seemed to me like that one was more of a cover-up. I didn't really believe that dude was interested.
Yeah, that one seemed a little sus to me.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I'm like, no, wait a minute.
No.
And he claimed that he was leaving in a hurry because he was under suspicion of adultery already. And it's kind of like, oh, wait, well, what do you mean she's murdered? It's kind of like, dude, it just seems too convenient.
Right. Well, maybe it's just that he had her a lot on his mind. And so when he went into the state, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
What I do know is your Pac-Man behind you is freaking awesome, dude.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, your background's pretty rough.
Right.
So we have one more video, but we can wait on that one. But yeah, these are all really, really fast. Even if they're not media coverage, right? Like they're still really fascinating cases.
They really are.
And there have been more recent ones too. There was a story I read I don't really want to get into because of the details. And it's crazy how a lot of these tend to be like really violent. It's not just like I went and
smothered,
stab somebody, or smothered.
Yeah, it's not like you
just
stab someone and then leave it at that. No, it's like you slaughter them.
Right. The one with the dad and the son said it went over 3 floors.
Yeah, 3
floors.
There were more than
90 separate infliction marks on Pops.
Yeah, poor Pops.
Overkill. Well, if you've ever had a really violent dream, they're not just like one stab and done. Generally, like they are terrifying. Like they are.
Hey, have any of you guys ever had like a partner and you've been in bed and like all of a sudden they just blam, like pop you in the ribs or something like that? Or
no, but I did. As I said before, I had one incident where I did punch my ex-fiance.
All right, so you did it, but you haven't had it done to you.
Yeah, I've had conversations with my girlfriend. I'll sit up or I'll start talking, and she thinks I'm awake, and then she'll start talking back to me, and then she'll realize about a couple minutes going, "Oh, he's asleep." And then usually I keep telling her, all you have to do is just say, "Go to bed, go back to sleep," and I just listen. I just go right back to sleep.
Yeah. Well, I woke up during the act of doing it, so that doesn't quite count as sleepwalking. I've slept talked, but I haven't slept walked.
Yeah,
that was like the only time that I ever acted out something, and that,
she
as
had
I
a
said,
sleep
it
gym
woke
moment. She
me up
was using a
as
punching
I
bag.
was punching. That's because I was being chased, and I was fighting for my life in my dream. Not good, but it's fine. It's not. It was just dealing with, I have.
And then how was his reaction? You told me what his reaction was, but this is priceless.
He was like, "That was a good hook." Good job, honey.
What a good sport. Get socked. Probably.
Yeah, he saw that I was jerking around, and he went to reach out, and then I guess I just had enough, had gotten awake enough to like swain, and he was like, "Oh, that was a really good hit." I'm like, "I'm sorry." It was just really funny.
So yeah,
anyway,
these are true things. They are, because the other thing I noted too is a lot of these stories seem really old. But
this is from the 70s. Yeah, but there are ones that are. There was a few that were just recent.
There was one that was in 2001.
Yeah, they talked about that one a little.
They talked about. They also talked about Parks, which is. I think he was in the 70s, but there was one recently. I think it was like 2018. I think there was one that they had just more recently. I think it was Michael Phelps or something. It's not the swimmer.
Not the
It's not the
swimmer.
swimmer, Michael Phelps. No relation. But yeah, there was he was more recent. I have it in my quick things here. There's Scott Flater. That's the one from 2000, 2001. Or 19. That's 1997. I apologize. That was Flater. And then there was, where's the other one? July 2008, Brian Thomas strangled his wife inside their camper while he was sleeping. There is, here's the one for 2018. It was Walker. There's Ken Parks. Okay. Sorry, this is
no problem. While you're doing that, I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience has ever experienced any sleepwalking or active sleepwalking, or a family member that has experienced this.
We talked about some of that in the chat from not last week, but
yes,
2
we
weeks
did.
ago
yes,
about it.
The week before that, yeah.
But have you ever seen someone?
But I mean, is
more
it
far
Nobody knows if anybody homicidally doing it.
Like,
yes, violent reports.
Yeah, did you experience anything that was maybe violent? Maybe they were breaking things or yelling and screaming. I've been told that a few times when I'm talking in my sleep, if somebody asks me a question of what I say, I get grumpy. And then usually that gives my girlfriend a hint that I'm sleeping. She's go to bed, go to sleep. And
so
I talk super fast.
Yeah, so here's some really interesting ones. So there is a forensic psychiatrist named Boncalo reviewed 50 reports of sleepwalking violence. So there are common characteristics of each of the attacks. And he found was a vast majority, 47 to 50 cases, were committed by men, and the ages of the individuals ranged from 27 to 48 years old.
Oh wow!
And there was also a strong childhood or family history of sleepwalking, nocturnal enuresis, which is wetting the bed, agitation. Huh?
I did read it could be genetic, sleepwalking.
Yes, sleepwalking is, yeah. Agitation, sometimes, not always, but sometimes that's a big factor. Agitation on waking and nightmares. So that's really interesting. So if you have a lot of these family issues, that could, not issues, I don't know, like if you have those, you
could be one of
have more of a likelihood of suffering, not just from somnambulism, but violent somnambulism. So they say like recurrent episodes of incomplete awakening from sleep, usually if the first half of the sleep cycle accompanied by episodes of getting up from the bed and walking around, that's sleepwalking. Yeah, these are, no recall of the episode. That's another really big thing that they've noticed. And the episodes cause significant distress or impairment of social occupation or other areas of functioning. That is also something that occurs in people who have violent somnambulism. So, and usually it's really interesting that this is also associated with sleep terror episodes. That's really interesting.
Right. I saw that too.
Yeah, it's also been noted that most sleepwalking violence occurs when an individual is going through a great deal of stress and suffering from inadequate sleep.
Yes, stress, inadequate sleep, and other things that can
these are all stress factors. Compounds.
Basically, stress will affect individuals in different ways. Even if you've been under a lot of stress, you just don't know how your body or your mind is going to react to it as you're going through it. So it's amazing on how our brains cope with what we deal with as human beings as we live life and stuff. So
there was just so much media that I got from it. I think that it got missed, but there was just so much. Like there actually are, because I was like, why don't we have any actual media clips? And I'd actually uploaded 2, or I linked 2 of them, and I was like, why did these ones make it? It's totally fine. It's just, but these are really interesting.
They were very interesting.
So it's really
more too, right?
I think I uploaded probably like 9 or 10 media clips all in a row, so it's easy to get lost. Because there was one that I did from The Conjuring as well, but that's totally fine. I just
there were more of them that I could pick from.
Yes, there were so many more. I gave like, there was so many. I think there was like 9 or 10.
Oh crap! I apologize. I didn't see all of those.
I could have sworn that I got more because the fact that we had two different ones. Yeah, I got even ones from from films. Yeah, there was so much on this.
Oh, okay.
And
I
it's just
apologize. I
that's
thought that was from
totally
a
fine.
prior conversation, so I just kind of skipped past some of it, and then went down
Mhm.
and I saw, okay, sleep homicide and stuff. I'm like, okay, here we go.
No, there was one from A New Fear, which was Freddy Krueger, New Fear. That was a really good one. And there was one from The Conjuring as well. But that's totally fine. It's not. But I was just like, I swear I had way more media clips of different cases, like the Florida case, and I had one from the Ray Park, which we watched, and then I had another one. I had a few other ones that were really
Oh,
fascinating, and I was like,
that's my bad. I'm
oh,
so sorry. I
that's
did not mean
weird.
to miss those. Holy
That's
cow.
okay. There's so much. It's just
There
so.
Yeah,
is.
I mean,
not every clip
I,
can make it into every show, anyways.
yeah,
We had
exactly.
to,
I was just
unfortunately,
my
you have
whole
to
thing is
scrap
to
a
go
lot.
and watch a lot of these films because they're really interesting just for what they show. Well, let's go through the last one that we've got, and we will talk about it afterwards. How about that, guys?
You got it.
Movie.
All right. Let me make sure I get the part one this
Oh,
time.
this is part 1 and part 2
Kenneth
as
James
well.
Parks, age 24, 6'5" tall, 280 pounds. On the night of May 24th, 1987, he was sitting in front of his TV in the living room, had fallen asleep. He woke up, put on his shoes, grabbed the set of car keys, left the house, leaving the front door completely wide open, got in his car, left, leaving the garage door completely open. He drove through the streets of Toronto, 23 kilometers, which is 14 miles, went to the home of his in-laws, Barbara Woods and Donald Woods, and in the garage he took out a tire iron, went upstairs to their bedroom. He nearly strangled his father-in-law, Donald Woods, before he went to his mother-in-law, Barbara Woods. He smashed her with a tire iron. She had brain bleeding, but he stabbed her 6 times with a kitchen knife, and the stab through the heart killed her. He then went to the door, outside the door, the 2 doors of their teenage daughters, and they reported later that he was grunting in a very loud way like an animal. And it was terrifying because then he stopped grunting and then he started again. Fortunately, he did not enter their room. He left the home, walked into a police station at 4:45 in the morning, and he said, "I think I killed somebody. I don't know what happened. I saw the face of Barbara Woods. It looked very sad to me, but I don't know what happened. I think I did something terrible." The police made a very important observation. He had cut the tendons of all his fingers, the flexor tendons. In the process of stabbing his mother-in-law and his father-in-law, the kitchen knife must have slipped through his fingers, and he cut the flexor tendons. He showed no pain. He felt no pain. And in the subsequent trial, that was very important evidence to indicate that he was not really with it, not awake. Because people, if they're awake, will have incredible pain after cutting basically 10 tendons of your hands. Now, he was acquitted in the trial that began a year later, and this made Canadian legal history the first time the sleepwalking defense was successfully used in a murder case. Now, people will say, how could this be? Well, the evidence was really compelling. I reviewed the 1,737-page court transcript, which I analyzed in my book, Paradox Lost. And basically, I think the jury got it right. First of all, he had a sleepwalking history. At the age of 11, his mother caught him as he was about to leave the 6th-floor window of their dwelling. I mean, he would have killed himself. He was always known to be a very, very deep sleeper. He also had an incredible family history of sleepwalking. 20 first-degree and second-degree family relatives had parasomnias. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And covering 4 different parasomnias: sleepwalking, sleep terror, sleep talking, and also sleep-related eating disorders. So he had the incredible family history, he had the personal history, and on top of that...
We're gonna go
Eating disorders. Holy crap.
He had 3
That was a
major
new one.
precipitating factors for people with a vulnerability to sleepwalking. The first factor was that he had been sleep-deprived 48 hours, which is a known risk factor for sleepwalkers. Second of all, he had major physical stress. He had played rugby on a very hot and humid afternoon in Toronto, and he was incredibly out of shape. So that's what we call a physical stress. And third, he had emotional stress. He had been a gambler, had gotten into major debt, and that was really weighing on him and really having an adverse effect on their marriage. Also, in the kind of witch's brew of his sleepwalking mind, the next day, he had organized a picnic, a barbecue at his in-laws' house. So in the sleepwalking mind, he was driving to his in-laws. He just happened to do it maybe 12 hours too soon, in the wrong state of mind, in other words, the sleepwalking mind. How the violence and the murder entered in, we don't know, but basically he had no motivation to kill his in-laws, and in fact, when he first met his future wife, Karen, she was a teenage runaway, and he convinced her to go back to her parents. So his in-laws were immensely appreciative of him because he helped rescue their runaway daughter, told her, go back to your parents. He eventually married them, and they considered him like a son. In fact, Barbara Woods called him my gentle giant. And in fact, he murdered her. So there was really no reason at all for motive for murder. He had been a sleepwalker, he had the risk factors for that night, and he had the family history. And for that reason, the jury, I think, got it right by acquitting him. The prosecution in Canada can appeal a murder trial, unlike the United States. And on appeal, the acquittal was sustained. It was basically supported. And unfortunately, I heard that down the road, he eventually did get divorced. I think it was just too much of a strain on your marriage when your wife realizes, you killed my mother, you almost killed my father. Although apparently he did well with clonazepam as therapy of his sleepwalking. But I think this is an extreme example of sleepwalking, but it's unintentional behavior with tragic consequences. And obviously sleepwalkers should avoid the precipitating factors in terms of sleep deprivation, physical stress, and deal with their emotional stress the best way possible.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Art. So what were you trying to say?
No. Well, he was talking about the different types of parasomnia, which I guess would be different things, movements, or actions that you do in your sleep, which I hadn't really thought about. That he said sleepwalking, sleep talking, but the one that caught me off guard was sleep eating disorders.
Oh yeah,
They're like people that like. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Sometimes I got to get up. I'm an older man. I got to get up in the middle of the night and go pee a few times. And, while I'm walking by the fridge, that little piece of salami looks good. You know what I mean? I might nibble on that. But I know that I'm doing it. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm asleep and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get. But there are people that have sleeping eating disorders.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will they will combine weird ingredients. They will make things and not remember. And their kitchen will be left a mess and fridge will be emptied out of stuff. Wake up the next morning.
My friend's mom tried to bake a cake, and the
that happens.
Thing was a mess. It was just it looked like a
tornado hit it.
And then she died when she went to dye her hair. It was red dye, and so my friend walked into the bathroom.
It looked like someone died.
She's like, "Oh my gosh, it looked like a murder scene," and she's laughing. I mean, because it's a cute memory, and
it is a cute one.
Her mom just like splotches all over her hair, and it's just so funny. But it's not funny at the same time. But it is funny when you think about them. When you think about it later, it's like, oh, that was really funny.
Okay, but I understand the movement parts again. You know what I mean? I understand maybe muscle memory, blah blah blah. I understand making the things. What I'm tripping on is the eating of the things, and then
why not? We eat compulsively without thinking.
Have you ever caught yourself drifting off in sleep, and then in your mind you're thinking of, I'm a little hungry, and I'll catch myself do this every now and again, and I'll like holding something in my hand, but I'm not, and I'll go to eat it, and then I'll wake up out of this going, what am I doing? I'm like, what? I've caught myself a few times doing that at different times, and I'm like just falling asleep. And then all of a sudden, I'll start chewing. Have you ever woken up yourself up and your mouth is chewing and you're like, oh, that's weird. I just thought I was eating like, a 5-pound marshmarshmallow. Where's my pillow? No, my pillow's gone.
Yes.
I haven't done that. When I was a kid, I did have the one time where I remember trying to find a bathroom. It was probably like 7 or 8. And it was like the one time that I really remember where I wet the bed. And it was literally trying to find a bathroom, but I woke myself up while that happened, and it's really interesting. But I could see as it where if you go to bed hungry, you can sleepwalk and go and eat something because your body will do things that your consciousness is not always aware of. So
I guess what caught me off guard was that it was such a prevalent part in one of those that it had its own category, and it was an eating disorder. Like again, I can understand if you did it once in a while, or like me, like I said, I know that I'm doing it consciously, but so much to the point that it's a disorder means you're doing it on a regular basis.
Yes,
like it's happening a lot. Damn. Man, you can't even get skinny while you're sleeping.
I mean, I'm sure people have exercise in their sleep.
Oh yeah, that's
as I said. Actually, yes, there.
One.
As I said, there was a guy, and it was on like Unexplained Mysteries. I was actually, when I found a lot of these, because I was actually looking for that one, but it was this guy who would go running in his sleep. Like, really, so you can exercise in your sleep. I mean,
oh, yeah.
I think it was for not for this one, for the previous one, for just sleepwalking, because he was because he was actually murdered. He was the one who was murdered, not.
Yeah, I'm not interested in murdering anyone, but if my unproductive butt would get up and go jogging while I was still asleep, I'd be down for that. I'd be cool with that.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm losing all this weight and I don't know why.
I don't even know what I'm doing.
Suddenly I'm like, more active? What? That would be fun.
Wow, so yeah, this has really been a fascinating topic.
I know, it is. This is why I was like, oh, there's so much out here. This is like, just the cases themselves are all really fascinating.
Yeah. And while this did cover some of the same stories that we heard, it had way more details in it, this last part.
Yes,
so this last out a lot more about the situation.
Yeah, the part that was really interesting was that he felt no pain. There was no pain.
Mean, imagine you cut these tendons. I mean, you get a paper cut and that hurts. And
yeah, I cut
cut here and you can't flex your fingers anymore. That would hurt like a son of a gun.
I cut my thumb, and that was some of the worst pain. Like, I sliced it really deep. I got a scar there now.
This, sharpening an axe went right down to the bone.
Yeah, and oh my gosh,
that's sharp.
It still hurt.
I've become such a little girl in my old age, man, dude. Like, I can't even hear people talking about, like,
for me.
Little girl. I mean, so it actually wasn't this that hurt the most. Like, this was, I was kind of more in shock. I was like, oh, I'm bleeding. I'm actually bleeding quite a bit. Oh, this is actually quite deep. Oh, okay. All right. That's a little scary. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about this right now, guys.
It actually hurt the worst.
Sorry, this stuff doesn't bother me.
Stuff doesn't bother me.
I'm so squeamish.
But, anyway, so yeah, I can only imagine that, if he cut all the 10, it wasn't just one tendon, it was all
of them.
All of those, and he had no pain. He didn't even know he'd done it. Didn't do that. I mean, that's a really good case for sleepwalking if I've ever heard of one.
Hell yeah.
And he loved these people. These people he loved, apparently.
That was what basically they said got him off or won him the defense, was that the cops had seen it when he walked in the station. They said there's no way you could, stand there.
You could fake that.
Right.
Yeah.
So much.
And they said he looked sad. He was still in that sleepwalking state, apparently, because he was still sad, but he had not. But other than that, there was nothing really there.
Yeah. He was still kind of like blank
out of it, and then not felt any pain. That's just what's so interesting about that. It's like he's like, I think I did something bad, but he just is so, the human body is strange.
It is.
It's just amazing how that happens.
I love this show.
It's a great show.
We get to learn about so much interesting stuff on the show.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope this was a fun little tangent in the sleep cycle of this series. I hope that was a fun little tangent, the homicidal sleepwalking. I was super into it. I mean, I still want to research it more and look at more of the other things that we've got, or that look into more of these cases, because they're so fascinating, and they're all really interesting and in depth, and just, I mean, they're horrifically brutal, but they're not. It's weird because the people that have done these things, they're generally, at least in most of the cases where they were acquitted, just like Stephen Parks, or Kenneth Parks. I'm sorry, Kenneth Parks. He was non-violent. He actually wasn't a violent person at all. He just had all these stressors that combined into this factor of that. And that was something that they also looked at, that he had no history of violence whatsoever. So it's really fascinating. And that seems to be with a lot of these people they have actually found that sleepwalking, yes, was the cause. Whereas, someone who claimed sleepwalking was the cause when it actually wasn't.
Well, and that last guy, I mean, he loved. It sounded like he loved his adopted parents.
That's what I was saying.
They loved
they loved him. he rescued their daughter and married her later. So it's like, wow, that's really interesting.
Right. So he had
So
no
by all
motivation
accounts,
at
he was
all.
very kind. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It's like Kenneth Park seemed very, that's why he was acquitted twice, not once, twice.
Right.
Not once, yeah, but twice, yeah.
Right. That's crazy. You know what? And I don't even know. I don't know. We haven't talked at all about what we're going to talk about next week.
I don't know.
I don't know if we're still going to be in the sleep series, or if we still got more sleep topics that we want to cover, or if we're ready to move on to something else, or
I don't know.
we'll figure that out. We
will figure that out during the week.
What you don't need to worry about is we will be here next Tuesday because there's no damn holiday.
There's no holiday. We'll be here next Tuesday.
Another interesting topic of some sort to discuss with you.
For sure.
Whether we're still in the sleep series or not. I know Alex wanted to cover constipation at some point.
Oh yeah, so it'd be digestive. It'd be a digestive series.
Oh
yeah, relax to the
We
rescue.
IBS and
digestive
we could talk about all of that. Celiac disease. We could talk about all of that. The digestive disorders that happen.
Crohn's disease.
Yeah, so I just say like Crohn's and IBS and celiacs.
Oh
and,
man, the movies for those are going to be
constipation.
great.
Yeah, they are. They're
Fantastic.
gonna be really
They're gonna be
shitty.
wonderful. Hooray.
I'll cut that one
Talk about
at the
hemorrhoids.
1 hour mark.
Yeah,
56 minutes and 1 hour for Mets.
Digestion. Oh yeah, 1 hour. Yeah, the shorts. Oh man,
That's a lot to digest.
It's cute. Oh, the puns. The puns are coming. I just feel them.
They're
Anyway,
coming out.
I hope you guys learned a lot about violent sleepwalking, homicidal somnambulism, and
Yeah, I'm now terrified of everybody around me.
This is not why you learn about these things, man.
I think I learned the wrong lesson.
Come to my house.
I am sleeping nowhere in a room with no one.
I'm ready for you.
Welcome to
all right, hey,
my world now.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and leave a comment. We always want to know what you're thinking, what your experiences on different topics. Hopefully, you guys don't have experiences with homicidal sleepwalking, but if you have a sleepwalking story you want to tell us, we'd love to see it in the comments, and then, maybe we'll even respond to it. We are here every Tuesday on Hearts of Kyber. Don't forget to check out kcpmerch.com. There's all kinds of cool that's separate from kybercave.com, but check out that too. Check out both Kyber Cave and KCP merch. If you're looking for merch that is exclusive to the shows that you see on our YouTube channel here, go there. We have the
really cool stuff.
They do.
And it's not just crap that you're going to see on other, like we have the beards like
the beards in the chair.
The beards in the chair.
Yeah, that was clever.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. There's so much it's going to be so much fun.
And that's just beginning. You need to get it. Yeah, I know.
You need to get a beard now.
See, you know
what now?
Boy Wonder is the beard in training.
Yes.
Man, you know what's funny is I've got a full-on beard, but I'm not a beard in the chair. I'm just a beard in a chair, but I'm not a beard in a chair.
No, you're the laughing king.
Oh,
that's true.
The laughing king.
The laughing king.
With that infectious laugh. Oh man.
Oh.
Where is that? Where is it at? Oh, I don't know if we've got it still in here.
There's a video that's up there that I think Metzl put up where you're laughing through the whole thing. It's very cool.
Dude, it was the night that they interviewed Fours interviewed me on Saber Rattle, and Metzl put together a roll of just like all my laugh tracks or something like that.
I was in tears.
Oh, band
I was thinking we should make it.
You're like,
we should make it have Fours make a Kyber Cave font, and it's just different expressions or things that we all say. That could I could be the startup when you start up the Saber.
Yeah, you should ask Fours about that. That'd be awesome. Really funny.
I'd buy that font.
ACP font.
The Laughter King. I love infectious laughs like that. So I think it's really great.
Wow,
Man, you should
that's
take
crazy.
a bow for your laughter. Anyways, I think we've all had enough. I think we all need to go and get some sleep, apparently. So
All right, yeah, not enough sleep is happening around here. We will see
yeah,
you guys next week.
next week.
Thank you for hanging out with us. Peace.
You know what?